Hi, my name is John James. I am a writer and campaigner for male victims of female perpetrated domestic violence, and this is From the Darkness. Hello and welcome to From the Darkness. Today I will be concentrating on a subject that was suggested on Twitter, the subject of the police. Now, I've spoken to you before about how useless the police were, how male victims of abuse have been calling the police to report the abuse. They turn up to the house and arrest the man who'd reported the abuse. This is how the police think. They see men as perpetrators and they see women as victims. They don't see anything else. I've already spoken to you before about how the police treated me, and if you read my book, which is right there, read my book From the Darkness, you will read about how I was treated by the police and how they completely didn't believe me, and how they believed my ex. The main thing I want to concentrate on is a interview that I did with an inspector Beth Wells of the West Mercia Police, and I want to read you what I said and what she said. Not all of it. I'm going to go through about half the interview for this video anyway, and I'll just highlight some of the things that were said. If you agree, disagree, if you have any comments whatsoever, just put your comments in the comments below and I'll check them out. Maybe I'll do a video on your comments. Okay, right at the beginning of the interview, she walks into the room. We greet each other and she says, "Thanks for coming in. It's been quite tough for you, hasn't it?" It's been quite tough for me. Well, I felt like saying, well, it wouldn't be as tough as if you did your job. If you'd investigated my abuse properly, I don't think it would have been as tough. So to say that is a bit unfeeling, really. And I say, yeah, it's not so much tough now. This is my life now. I can't get justice for me, so I'm fighting for other male victims of domestic violence. She says, "Good for you. It's a very difficult aspect of life, domestic violence, for police to prosecute." Really? Let me just give you a little fact here. It's difficult for the police to prosecute, yet in cases of male abusers and female victims, they prosecuted over 68,000 prosecutions in 2017-2018. So if it's that difficult to prosecute, why is there 68,000 cases taken to court and prosecuted when there's a male abuser and a female victim? Don't seem that difficult to me. Later, I go on to describe how I was affected by my abuse. Let's see. I said, "She convinced me that everybody hated me, especially at work. She would get angry if I went out without her permission, so in a way I was kept prisoner. If I went to the pub, she would call me continuously, so I stopped going. She convinced me that I was ugly, fat and worthless. She convinced me that I was bad at my job, and she would get angry if she wanted sex and I didn't. Sometimes I would have sex for fear of what would happen if I didn't. Now, if that happened to a woman, that would be rape." When I reported this to the police said, "Why didn't you leave?" She said, which is a fair question. Really? Would you have asked a woman that? She says she would. She would have asked a woman and a man that because it's a fair question. And it's a question that has to be asked. Really? Okay. And she says there are plenty of reasons why a woman would stay, because she couldn't afford to leave, because she was too afraid to leave. Unfortunately, it's difficult to portray that to a jury when it's a man, she says, because the jury would see a man as, you're a man. You could have left at any time. So instead of saying the police screwed up, the police fucked up, she blames it on the jury. They don't take it to court because it's difficult to prove to a jury because the jury has prejudice. How ridiculous is that? Just to excuse the fact that you aren't doing your job away because, we're not going to do our job, because if it went to a jury would be prejudiced against you. Well, isn't that your job to make sure that the jury isn't prejudiced? Isn't that your job to put forward the facts so the audience can see everything that happened? And I think if I'd have gone to court, the audience would have seen my side of it. I think I could have presented a lot of evidence. And I even say to her that I could have presented evidence by my doctors. My doctors could have said the things that I told them when I went in, that I was in an abusive relationship. And the medication that was given to me was for PTSD and for depression. So they could have told them that. I was on 4 lots of medication. They could have told the jury that. They could have told the police that, if the police had bothered to ask, which they didn't. They could have also spoken to my therapist, who classified me as suffering from post-traumatic stress and saw the processes that I went through to recover from that. But they didn't bother talking to my therapist either. What she does say, however, is they could have taken this forward. They could have prosecuted if they were looking at coercive control. But in the absence of any hard facts, we were struggling. I've investigated coercive control, she says. I have a CID background. Well, if you have a CID background, then surely you know how to investigate coercive control. I know that it's difficult to pin down coercive control in any case, but there must be ways of doing it, and surely with a CID background, then Inspector Wells could have actually investigated properly, and surely her police force would have known how to investigate properly, but they didn't investigate. They took only one violent incident, which was the latest incident, because apparently all other violent incidents, they have a 6-month lifespan. Well, I think that needs to change if that's the case, which I don't think it would be if it was a woman victim. But if that's the case, then that needs to change, because a victim doesn't go, in a lot of cases, I'm not saying all cases, in a lot of cases a victim doesn't go, oh, I've been hit, I'm going to the police. They do wait months, they do wait years. So to give it a 6-month lifespan is like absolutely ridiculous, surely. I also told her that that she'd called the police on me when I cut myself. I cut myself because she drove me that crazy that I did cut myself, and she called the police, and the police came within 15 minutes, and I've said this before, that the police came along and said, what's been going on, took her outside, asked me what's been going on, and I said she kicked me, she punched me, she spat in my face, and she threatened to stab me in the eye. And the police said, as long as you're all right now, sir. As long as I'm all right now. Would they have said that to her if she'd said that about me? No, I would have been arrested. I also told her about, like, all the things I've just mentioned, about how she belittled me, how she convinced me that my work colleagues hated me and stuff. That's all coercive control. That's all coercive control. And I told that to the police the first time that I visited them and reported this. And they did nothing about that. Nothing. Oh, we can't prove it. Pfft, whatever. But she's telling me that they could have done something if it was coercive control. Well, obviously your officers are not following, her officers are not following the protocol on, because that wasn't the case. When she spoke to me about my case, she said, "Your complaint was focused on one incident that happened at Christmas." And I said, "No, it didn't. My complaint was forced into that category. As I said, the police only wanted one incident. The police would only focus on that one latest incident. They wouldn't focus on anything else. I gave them photographic evidence of my flat being smashed up. I gave them an 11-minute recording of her screaming at me and abusing me for 11 minutes. And I also gave them a photo of a bite mark on my hand, which, okay, forensically they can't do anything about, but she told them the first time they asked her about it, she said that I'd bitten myself, and the second time they asked her about it, they said she'd bitten me in self-defence, and the police didn't even realise that she'd changed her story. So the investigations here were breaking down, and they were just making my condition worse. They made my condition so bad that I went home absolutely distraught, that nobody believed me, that nobody was doing anything about this, that she was still roaming the streets, sort of going about her daily life, abusing other men, and I was, had the post-traumatic stress left over from the abuse, and nothing was being done about it. And I went home and I would punch myself in the face, just punch myself in the head, and I would throw myself into a table, like no shoes on, kick the table with no shoes on, just to hurt myself, just a complete whole array of self-harm, until I tied a phone cable around my neck and pulled it so tight that I passed out. And that was all because of the police. That was all because nothing was done by the police. Absolute waste of space, really. Inspector Wells spent time telling me that they could prosecute coercive control better, although they never investigated the coercive control piece of my complaint. But then she goes on to say physical violence is easier to prosecute if people are hospitalised, if they receive medical attention, or we can get records. Okay, so several things. One, it has to go that far. Somebody has to be hospitalised before you can do anything about it. I think it's gone too far if that's the case. And I don't think you're doing your job right. I don't think the police are doing their job right if it has to go that far. Secondly, medical records. They didn't have any medical records of mine. They didn't talk to victim support who had records of what I said. They didn't talk to the doctor who had medical records of what I was taking and records of what I said. They didn't talk to my therapist who had records of what I said and records to say that they'd said that I was having post-traumatic stress because of abuse. So to say, oh, we can look at medical records, well, maybe they can look at medical records of a female victim, but they didn't look at my medical records. So that is just absolute garbage. When talking about prosecuting my abuser, she said, I'm thinking that putting through the criminal court, is that really the right way to deal with her? Or do we need to put our efforts into helping people like yourself? So, okay, so let the abuser off and help people like myself. But you didn't help people like me. Didn't help me at all. So what would be your answer to that? If you're not going to help me and you're not going to prosecute my abuser, then what's the use of you? I don't understand. I really don't understand. If they want to help me, then help me. They didn't give me any advice, they didn't give me any helplines, they just said, bye, can't do anything about it, bye. So what is the use? What is the use of the police at all? If that's the way it's going to be. It just doesn't make sense. Surely the job of the police is to prosecute criminals. And it's a criminal act to abuse me. It's a criminal act to abuse anybody. So what? I don't understand the statement there. She also says, I know it takes victims a long time to call the police. Then why have just 6 months for a violent episode? Why do you discount it in 6 months if you say to me, that victims take a long time to call the police? Again, doesn't make sense to me. So they call the police. We go to the scene, we arrest them, we take them to court. They are sentenced for whatever they do. They go through their sentence, they're released, and they get back together. They do this a lot of times. We see what we do as a quick fix. We need people to respect each other, to have open, valuable relationships. So don't we all, darling? Don't we all? We all like to think that we respect each other, that we have valuable relationships. But it didn't work like that. And you can't look at stuff like that. You can't say, oh, they're going to get back together so we won't bother. And you can't turn around and say, oh, they should respect one another, so let's look at the world through rose-tinted glasses. It don't work like that. If I did get back together with her, that would be an abusive mentality. So what you need to do is, once the criminal, the abuser, is in jail, then you can't go, I don't think it's the right thing to do to go, they're in jail now, it's all over. It isn't all over. Not only do they need to go to jail, but the victim needs help still. The victim needs help to, when they do come out, they don't go back with them. Think about it. The system is wrong. The system is so wrong. I said to her, the police need more training. The police need to help to change societal attitudes. And this is what I was saying about the court, that they need to go and present it properly. They need to investigate properly, get the evidence properly, present it properly when they go to court. And this is what I say to her. She asked how I would go about that, and this is what I say. And I say, you have to be straight with the public. You have to tell them that these things happen. They happen to men and women as well. I told her I was told that I was abused, talking about societal attitudes. I was told I was abused because I was weak. I was told to slap her, mate. Give her a slap. And I said, but I didn't slap her. And she said, no, because you'd be arrested. So I would be arrested if I slapped her back. But she wasn't even like, she wasn't arrested or anything when she abused me. Can you see out there the complete bias in her statements here? It's absolutely ridiculous. And we talk about coercive control again. And she says the bar is very high for coercive control. And I said, well, that needs to change then. And she said, there needs to be a lower offence, something in between. She told me that the bar is set. Now, this isn't set for women this high, but the bar is set as if your finances are being controlled or you're kept prisoner. That's the bar. That's the bar. And she said there needs to be an offence in between there. And we struggle because the bar is so high. It leaves us with a raft of people that we can't help. Men, basically. Because the bar for female victims isn't that high. The bar for male victims is that high. And she also said, just to round it off, she also said there needs to be a group for men like Women's Aid, because Women's Aid are fantastic. Well, obviously she doesn't know about Mankind Initiative, she doesn't know about Male Advice Line, and neither of those groups are as powerful as Women's Aid. I've told you about Women's Aid before, how they are a political organisation, how they are ruthless with how they conduct themselves. There is no powerful organisation like that for men. And the police didn't even know about the organisations that aren't that powerful. I don't know. I don't know what the use of the police are, do you? If you have your own stories of the police, please get in touch. I will do another video on the second half of that conversation. But that's basically the first 20 minutes of it. It was a 40-minute discussion. I don't know. You tell me what your experiences are with the police. You tell me whether you think the police are a good thing, whether they're a bad thing, whether you think they treat people fairly, whether you think they're very much men are perpetrators, women are victims mentality. You tell me. Comment in the comments below, and I will see you next time. So you take care, stay safe, peace. Thank you for watching the video, and if you like that video, please press like, and it would be much appreciated if you could press subscribe for more videos on male victims of female perpetrated domestic violence. I will see you next time. Stay safe out there. Peace.
Nothing I could do is ever good enough for you.